Thank you, Swami, for giving me an opportunity to, especially just around the Guru Purnima Day. I think I'm very blessed to have this opportunity, and through Durjati. Initially, I was a little concerned whether I'll be able to do something like this, but I took it as Swami's will. As I said, I'm living in the present. I'm trying to focus on this. This is Swami's will, and I said, okay, I will try my best. Loving Sairams to all of you. Many of you know me. Some of you might not know me here, but this is a great opportunity to do study circle because it involves a lot of self-introspection, because you just can't present something just like that unless it means a lot to you, and you have to put few things into perspective, into practice, and it makes you think on the longer term. And I really feel like Swami gave this topic to me, maybe because I was doing I had some impulsive desires, and I did swipe my card and bought a lot of things. Maybe this was Swami's way of like trying to remind me the ceiling on desires. So I was, very touched by Swami trying to remember me and giving me this topic so that I can present. And that way I need to kind of go back and look into what I need to work on. So it's a lesson mainly for me, and a self-development for myself. And just, I would love to share my thoughts with all of you here. I do have a PowerPoint, so let me share my screen. Let me know if you're all able to see this.
Yep, we can see.
Perfect. And one other thing that I just want to let everybody know, that this is going to be a very interactive session. It's not just going to be me talking. That's not something that I enjoy too much. So I'm looking forward to all your support in terms of any questions, any thoughts, your life hacks, anything that you want to share with the group. And again, sealing on desires, this is a topic that we've all learned as Sai devotees for a really long time. And it's a very special topic to Swami. He tries to interweave like the sealing on desires. He brings it into his discourses some way or the other. When he's talking about Vahinis, Jnana Vahini, or even Dharma Vahini, Dhyana Vahini, some way or the other, he's like, okay, let me bring a sentence or two on sealing on desires. So we all have been exposed to this topic. And I'm sure as Baba devotees, we are all practicing, we are all kind of, to a certain extent. And we are all aware, first of all, the awareness is there. And of course, Swami alerts us at the right time, and we are all practicing too. So, so here we are on the sealing on desires topic. So one of the most important things for me is like when we talk about sealing on desires or anything, like how to make our lives this message. Because we've listened to Swami's discourses so many years, so many times, in person and online, and quotations. We are discussing study circle, we're studying his literature. But how do we make our lives this message? This is one topic, like on sealing on desires. I think if we follow even a little bit of it, I think we would have taken a step towards how to make our lives this message. And one of the Swami's favorite stories is about the monkey trap. This is a lesson on desire and freedom. In India, those who want to catch monkeys, they are specifically called monkey catchers. And we've seen a lot of people and a lot of monkeys in Puttaparthi too. And I've seen people catching monkeys. Those who want to catch monkeys, they prepare a pot with a small opening and fill it with some sweets or like some food, like bananas, anything that kind of monkeys love. The monkey, desiring the food, it puts its hand inside and takes a big handful. It tries to kind of put it, but unable to draw its hand because he's got the food or the sweets there, is not able to pull it out. Unable to draw its hand out through the opening, the monkey remains trapped. Only by releasing the grip and letting go of those sweets or anything, that the monkey can free itself. So this is a great analogy, and always Swami is somebody who always brings analogy, kind of shows us different things into our real life. He says the world is like this pot, and our desires are the sweets inside. When we cling to our desires, we become bound, unable to live freely, because we are like, caught in between that. We don't know how to free ourselves. So the key points that I would like all of us to focus, and Swami has asked us to focus, is desire as a trap. Just like the monkey's desire for sweets traps it, our desire traps us in the world. And I'm sure we can see it, like if we take a step back and we become the witness at every stage in time, every stage, if you look at it, the desires are the one that kind of holds us like really tight. We are not holding on to the world or anything like that. The world keeps moving, but the desires kind of make us like, really bound, and we want to do more and more, and we want to get to more. And one of the things Swami talks about is to attain freedom, we must sacrifice our desires. This acting of letting go is known as renunciation. So if we want freedom, we need to have renunciation. Renunciation for freedom, the letting go. And that's something like, I think it's an important practice from day one. I think it's very hard to do it at a later stage, but when we, if you're able to put those, guardrails around us at every stage in time, we are able to let go better. That's what I have personally felt, and I've also practiced that, and it has helped me. And as we all see in our Balvikas or in our education programs, we teach children right from day one, even when they are pre-kids, pre-KGs, and even in group 1, group 2, anything, they have their own way of, like, we bring in the concept of sealing desires to these children. And then we expand it to the adults, and we expand it to the young adults, and of course, and to the adults, and how we practice. And understanding this bondage, it's not the world that binds us, but it's our own desires. And this is the picture, Swami had the cute picturization. And I always try to remember this, like how we are stuck, that the monkey's stuck and I'm stuck into the world. So what is the sealing on desires? And this is a program that Swami started, and Swami has been so, I would say, it is something like he's stubborn about this. It's something very close to him. And what is this program that Swami started on sealing on desires? The components are curb on excessive talk, curb on excessive desires and expenditure, control on the consumption of food, and check on the waste of energy. If you look at it, it seems very, very simple. Curb on excessive talk. And you see that in Puttaparthi when we go, like, even when we are in Puttaparthi, we are all like not talking too much. We are like, Sairam, Sairam, Sairam. It's the inner voice that comes out, none of the external voices come out. And we are like, we want to be as simple as possible. We go and have food on time. We don't take too much food and nothing. It seems to be like, we are in that world. Swami has set up a template of Puttaparthi for all of us to go and experience, so that we can take that template, we can bring it back to our worlds, and we are able to live in those. So whatever Swami did was he created a template and he walked the talk. It was not Swami is not the one who was like, I'm going to preach for you all, but I'm not practicing it. But everything that he did, he practiced. And that's why, our lives are his message, how we conduct ourselves and how we treat one another and how we live in the society, kind of depicts of like what the values that Swami has inculcated in each one of us. And he I wouldn't call it like properly, he wanted us to have this kind of a lifestyle. He wanted us to kind of bring in those values and lead our lives. So one of the things is the curb on excessive talk. And again, we all know that talking too much, creates a lot of issues. Sometimes we have to be very, very crisp and necessary. We kind of constantly question even our talking. Is this necessary? Do we need to say all these things? Can we just shut up? Sometimes I love these emojis to kind of say, zip your mouth, and all these things are really good. And some of the things that we work with, when we present to our children, we bring into a real life how things are working, and some visual aspects of zipping your mouth, something like that really, really helps. And curb on excessive desires and expenditure. It's really true. Like, sometimes I had this conversation with like one of my friends, today, saying that we had very little when we were growing up, but we were much more happier. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in my parents, and when my friends came, we all came and we could lie down in our main hall, And we were on the floor or like in the couches. It was not like we didn't want like an individual bed, anything like that. We would adjust to anything that was there. Sometimes I feel like, was less is more, and we were much more happier. But now when I really think about my own children, like I feel like they're entitled. We've given them everything we could as parents, because we think that we wanted to do our best for our children. So we've given them. But I sometimes wonder that, they have not experienced all the wonderful things that I have experienced as a kid, but they have their own, I would say, moments here, but nothing like what we had back when I was a kid. And I'm sure even people who grew up in the US would relate to it, because that generation, less was more. And we valued anything new, anything exciting much more than what this generation of children and adults do as well. And Swami talks about the control and the consumption of food, and Dr. Revati had done a wonderful study circle talking about the entire thing on stealing on desires on food, and she covered to the breadth of this whole topic on how we should eat, what we should eat, etc. So, which was fantastic. So, I would urge you all to go back to that video if possible and listen to it. So, a lot of good tips to kind of bring from there. But even the control on the consumption of food. Now, if you talk about like all the diseases, anything that we had, the first thing people say, oh, portion control is important. Don't eat too much. Eat at regular times. Consumption is important. Make sure you have all the varieties, a lot more vegetables, protein, and everything. But again, it all comes down to the consumption of food. At what time do you eat? With what energy do you eat? I buy a lot of spices from this place called Penzies, and I love to cook food. And I'm a foodie. I enjoy good food. And so one of the mission statement of Penzies is love people and cook them tasty food. And I really take that very seriously. And I love to cook food for people and give it to my neighbors, my friends, aunties and uncles at the Sai Center. I really enjoy, and I like to have people over. So anytime you're in Connecticut, you're most welcome to come to my house, and I love to cook food and check on the waste of energy. This is a very important thing too. Like it's so funny. Like in my house, my husband is I call him the energy police. He will make sure that, oh, turn off the lights on time, turn off the water, don't use too much water. But sometimes it's like very annoying, like, oh my God, he's saying these things all the time. But when you really think about it, like, this is what Swami has been saying, maybe Swami is reminding through him. So, like, I have learned over a period of time not to get so annoyed at him. So I kind of think that, Swami is trying to remind me, and I do try to, take shorter baths if possible, and also shorter showers, and, not waste too much of energy. These are the components that on the Sealing on the Desires program, and the goal is to prevent the waste of money, time, food, and resources, and use saved resources for the welfare of others. It's not only us, the entire world is talking about it, not only Sai devotees, but everybody's talking about this. Again, to kind of go through this on a different thing, what is Sealing on Desire? Food consumption, eat moderately, avoid food wastage. Annam Brahma, Swami has said that, and food is divine. Annam Brahma is this in the Upanishads, because we do worship, we worship food. Food is it gives us energy. So food is divine. We pray to the food, and we offer food prayer before we kind of eat. Financial discipline, avoid misuse of money. Spend on necessary and sacred purposes. It's not that, like Swami says, do not spend on anything, but like always have a checkpoint. Is it necessary? Is it really need to be done? Can we do it next time? Is it like, do we have to squeeze it in this month? Can we do it? And can we use certain things for sacred purposes? Like, and again, as Sai devotees, as part of our membership at the centers, we are all very fortunate. Like Swami gives us opportunity for a lot of seva activities. We have soup kitchen, we all participate in. We have like back to school initiative, Thanksgiving baskets, Easter baskets. Wherever possible, I think all of us come together and we do support all these seva activities for sacred purposes, for serving others, because we really believe in what Swami has inculcated, the values in each of us, and we want to be useful to the society as well. And time management. Time is invaluable. We all pray to the time, God of time. We sing bhajans, Kala Titaya Namaha, Kala Bhairavaya Namaha, Kala Kalaya Namaha. He is time. And let's utilize for productive and spiritual activities. Again, look at all of us here coming to the satsang to be here with each of us, because this means a lot to all of us. This means like Swami's, being with Swami, being with our satsang people kind of energizes us. So Swami says, let's utilize for productive spiritual activities wherever possible. And to a certain extent, I would say that if we offer everything that we do to Swami, whatever we do, and everything becomes spiritual that way. Even if we are doing our exercise, that's important. Exercising is important. At that time, we do Gayatri, or like we say, hey, Swami, this is the body you've given me, and you live inside me. I truly believe in it. So I want to take really good care of myself, good care of you, Swami, and utilize everything that we do to Swami. And I think it becomes very spiritual. Energy conservation is just not only your, the fans, lights, and water, etc., but it's also about moderate use of energy in thinking, talking, and physical actions that we do. But let's channel for positive and constructive purposes. And we see this in our corporate world when we go there, like, everybody wants to be supportive to each other. Let's give constructive criticisms, and like, let's be positive. Let's bring teamwork. So everybody focuses on these things. If you think about it, the entire world, what Swami had talked about was golden age is coming. It's very true, because everybody is starting to think of these topics in their own way. It might not be under the Sathya Sai movement, but if you take a step back, it's all on the humanity in this movement that everybody thinks about the food consumption, financial discipline, time management, and energy conservation. So which is exciting. And again, I would say that we are fortunate that we have Swami who had introduced all of us to it at a very, very young age. The spiritual insights on the sin of desires, the spiritual insights are happiness and peace can be achieved only by limiting desires. Practice renunciation and control. This is something like Swami talks over and over again. True comfort and freedom comes from control over senses and desires. Less luggage makes journey more enjoyable. And we've all seen this even when we travel, when we check in our baggage, we have to wait for the luggage, for the baggage to come out. At that time, like you always think, oh my God, why did I travel with the check-in baggage? I wish I'd just come with my carry-on baggage. I didn't need all those things. You get into that mood. You are having those kind of discussions. I'm sure every single person have had those discussions in their lives. So less luggage makes journey more enjoyable. And desires overshadow divinity. Excessive desires diminish the divinity in us, because you're not focusing on the divinity inside you, but you're looking at outside what's going on. And reducing desires enhances spiritual growth and memory too. And 3 ways to deal with desires. I know we cannot live without desires. Desires are important. We need to have like some kind of a motivation. We need desires, but how do we deal with them? There are 3 things Swami talks about, and there's one, it is succumb to the desires. But the problem is, the issue is it only increases, because when you succumb to desire, you want more and more and more. And then the other way to deal with this is suppress it. It helps temporarily, but then it backfires. So for example, you want to say, oh, I'm not going to eat, I'm not going to eat dessert for this month. You might suppress that, you're going to say, I'm not going to eat. But the moment you kind of you let go of that moment of, that you want to get out of it. I was like, maybe a little bit, let me have. And that little bit becomes a little bit more and more and more. And it definitely backfires, because I've tried to do these intermittent fasting and all this, nothing helps me. So I kind of the portion control has helped me to kind of be happy in terms of what I'm eating. The last way is sublimate. It says, replace it with something higher and nobler. Any of your desires that you have, like lower desires, you replace it with something higher and nobler, doing seva for others, like soup kitchens, and doing something for another person, and even holding a door, and even picking up a phone and talking to someone and asking them, hey, I was thinking of you, how are you doing? that moment of time, like when you know somebody is going through a difficult time, to have that conversation with them, that is nobler, that is higher, that is a seva. And praying for somebody, saying that I'll pray for you. I do remember, like, one of when I had come into this to the country, I was a very young girl and I got married. I left my parents and I came to the Sai Center. My Sai Center, Norwalk Sai Center, was my haven. It was almost like, everybody adopted me. I found my parents, my grandparents, I would say, all at the Sai Center. And one of the aunties was Mrs. Balasingham. She was from Sri Lanka. I think she was the women coordinator at Sri Lanka. Every day, every time she would come to our center in the morning, she'd say, I'll pray for you. That was like a very powerful statement, that somebody's taking the time to pray for me. And, I was expecting my children and everything. So she said, I'll pray for you. That used to give me a lot of joy, and I felt very special. So praying for another person it is a seva. And replacing, that's one of the things. How do we kind of deal with desires, is replace with something higher and nobler. And Swami is just amazing. And he is like so practical that he says, he does not say no to desires, but he urges us to have control over them. When you see that Swami wants all of us to be dressed up really well, he doesn't want us to be like, looking like dressed up in shags, or because, desire, like you can't wear like really good clothes. He wants us to dress up, but he wants us to have control over it, because it gives us the understanding the true self. He tells us, I have come here to show you who you really are. You can clearly see your own reflection in me. What you think you are is not really what you are. And, when we curtail our desire, Swami says that we can understand our true self, which is the divinity. And developing detachment through attachment to God. I talked about sublimation there. It's tough to develop detachment as human beings because we are all born to be attached to one another. But when Swami says cultivate attachment to God, then you automatically, detach from the world. He gives this example of seesaw. More attachment to God leads to more detachment from the world. And the mantra is remain God-centric. Namasmarana, and dedicating all our actions and all our thoughts, everything to the superpower, the God, whatever we want to call Swami, the nature and everything. And the wisdom and renunciation are the two wings of a bird. Wisdom without renunciation is useless, and renunciation without wisdom is foolishness, if you think about it. And we talked about sublimation of desires, sublimate worldly desires to find peace, replace the lower desires with something nobler, like choosing Swami in every moment of life. The true happiness lies in giving and not in grabbing and accumulating. And we all are like now in this mode when we talk about, I need to declutter my space. There is this concept of Feng Shui says, declutter, keep it minimalism. And all these are like seem to be the buzzword, but it all stems from the concept of sealing on desires. And I think General Chibber, one of Swami's ardent devotees, he gave a formula for happiness. It's number of desires fulfilled divided by total number of desires entertained. We do not have control over the numerator, right? Number of desires fulfilled, because every time one desire is fulfilled, there's another one that's jumping in. So we do not have control over the number of the numerator at the top, the number of desires fulfilled. But we definitely have a say in the denominator, which is the total number of desires entertained. What do I want? What I really need versus what I want. And another way to symbolism against Swami is like somebody who gives us these analogies, symbolisms, so that it's always like, we can visualize it and it kind of comes into the mnemonic, just comes to us. He talks about Ganesha's rat. A rat holds modakam, which is a steamed sweet made of rice flour and jaggery, in its hand, but eyes are fixed on Lord's eyes. Modakam symbolizes wisdom. Keeping the Lord in our minds yields the fruit of wisdom. So we are like, whatever be there. And I think one of the other beautiful analogies Swami's talked about is like our lives. He says, like, just be like a lotus. I remember Swami talking to our Balvikas children when we were kids, saying that the lotus, like it's on the muddy water, but if you see that lotus does not have any of the mud on it, the flower as such. It grows in those muddy water, but the mud never touches on the lotus. So one of the analogies, I'm like, go and enjoy the world, be in the world, go and do all the things. I think he's time and again he's talked to the students too. Maybe Durjati can talk about it as well. But he said, don't get immersed, but just stay above, be that witness and enjoy everything, but let it not be that's the only thing in life. And balancing needs and desires, it's important to define needs and desires. That's the needs and wants. An example is like, again, analogy by Swami is buying shoes. We don't like when we buy it too tight, then you have all these calluses and, you're not comfortable. And when they are a little bit bigger, still it's not comfortable because your feet come out. So we always make sure when we buy our shoes that they need to fit perfectly. Similarly, balance aspiration for money. Too much or too little causes discomfort. So that's why it's beautiful that he never says no to desires, but he just urges us to have control on them. So this is my favorite, time of the day or the topic. Like I know, we've talked about it and we've heard about all these things. That's the end of the presentation. But now we really want all of us to kind of to learn from one another on self-reflection and share our life hacks with one another. Because the study circle is all about like learning from one another, because Swami has told us everything. But if you think about it, when we go to the center, when we sit next to each other and have those conversations, there are things that you pick up. Some things have worked for others, and it seems to resonate with you, and you want to go take back and practice on your own self. So from that perspective, so I do want to open it up to all the devotees here. And there are these questions. So we'll go through it, like maybe a couple of you can talk about what boundaries. Every question, we'll have 2 or 3 people comment and share your thoughts and some life hacks so that we can make it as interactive as possible. The first question is, what boundaries can I set to control my desires? I would urge all of you to turn on your video, come online so that we can look at each other and talk through this. It's nice to see all of you online. So who wants to go on this first question of what boundaries can I set to control my desire?
Sairam, Soundari, this is Sandeep.
Yes, Sandeep, Sairam.
Sairam. Great study circle. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. So, what boundaries can I set to control my desire? So Swami says, like you talk about, do not waste food, waste money, waste time, waste energy, do not exploit nature. So how we can focus ourselves to detach from these desires. So like you said, desires are necessary, but what desire we should have? So Swami says, recognize a desire for self-realization of God or God realization. That should be our aspirations. He said, focus on this ultimate goal. And when we focus on this goal, what we will do with the self-realization, this will help to find the balance what we're looking for. Because that's what this is going to do. It's going to cultivate, we're going to have to cultivate detachment from these worldly desires and attachment, which can help in focus on the pursuit of spiritual goals. So how we can do that? There's a multiple steps. Swami said we can do that. Like you said, we can focus on chanting God's name. We can do meditation. We can do, we can also have. Swami said faith and devotion it's very important that we should have a full devotion. We should have unwavering faith in God. If we surrender to Swami, we surrender our thought, words, and deed to Swami, he will help you and bring us back on track. So focus on self-realization. He said you should have a desire, but desire of your true nature, who you are, and what's our purpose in our life. So if we can focus on that, that will help. And how we can do that is different steps. We can do meditation, we can do chanting, you can do selfless service. Service says Seva is the best way to do it, because that can help you to really focus on who your true self, your true nature is. And
Thanks, Sandeep.
detachment,
Thank you.
Sairam.
Thank you so much for your inputs. Anybody else who want to take this question on what boundaries
share an
can I set?
experience?
Sairam. Yep.
Sairam?
Sairam, this is Veda Vishwanathan. Can I share
Yes,
my
please.
thoughts on it?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
this has always been a very daunting question for me. And for a long time, I interpreted renunciation as running away from objects.
Mhm.
And I was taught a very good lesson by Bhagavan once. I just wanted to share that experience so that it produces an insight. It used to be a routine. Whenever I visited India, my mother would present me with a shirt on the day when I leave. I always thought it is unnecessary formality because I had too many shirts to wear, and why is this added on to this? So I always received it with love and packed it, and I always used to wear it, but I always had a feeling that it's unnecessary. One time when I went there, Swami was there in the veranda, and one of the elementary school boys, he came with a whole bunch of clove and sugar candies and all that, and invited him for his birthday. And he talked to him. He took that sugar candy, he took the clove, he enjoyed it in front of him. And then he called me. He said, "Do you understand what this means?" Then, of course, I sort of, because I was giving a thought to what I was doing, and I sort of understood, but I not clearly understood. Then he spelled it out. He said, renunciation is not running away from objects. Renunciation is to develop an attitude that no object binds you. Remember this. And next time when I went, my actions were different. I received the shirt. I went and I changed and wore that shirt. And the first sentence that came out of my mother's mouth was, "Did Swami teach you this?" How did she know that? So there is a phenomenal connection of Bhagavan's teachings when it is put into practice that the whole world notices it. And Swami always gets the credit. So that's the boundary. Yeah, you can really enjoy life, but with an idea that if it is not there, it's not going to make you sad. And once you develop that attitude, I think that's the lesson that I learned from Bhagavan. So I think I'm very grateful. I thought I would share that with you.
This was fantastic because this is a great lesson for all of us too. It's just not for you. And I think through you, all the devotees here get a chance to kind of listen to it and to be able to put it into practice. Renunciation is not about running away, but it's about not getting bound, which is a very powerful lesson. And I'm so happy that you made your mother very happy too. Let's move to the next question.
Om
Sairam?
Sairam. Om
Sairam.
Sairam. Om Sairam. Can I just take 30 seconds and give my response?
Sure, Sathya. Sure.
Yeah. So, to me, it again, we all struggle with that. But now it has become a very simple practice for me, which works very well, and it might help for others too. So that's why I wanted to share with you guys. And that, anytime if I have a food or I go places or if I eat or if I talk or everything, because desires come sometimes. We want to talk too much. We want to go to different places. So everything involves the desires. And one question I always ask, is this desire going to take me to my true nature, developing more love and compassion in me, developing my more contentment, more forgiveness, whatever I do, whatever? Or is it going to increase my more name and fame or more my pleasures or whatever? And when the answer comes automatically, Whether if I go to this place, and I kind of debate, should I go to this party? I'm invited and all that. And the question immediately comes within. How is that going to help me to increase my more connection or coming closer to God or knowing my true nature, whatever, different terminology we can use. But that one question helps me so much that it immediately holds me back. So this definitely helps me a lot. And I thought I should share that with you guys. And
no, thank you. Thank you so much, because it's another great thing, like questioning ourselves, like, is this necessary? What is it going to help me out with? It's a good reflection before we take any action that we do, like having these questions, it's fantastic. But thank you so much for bringing this out.
Sure.
Let's move to the next question is, how can I practice moderation in fulfilling my desires? How can I practice moderation in fulfilling my desires? I would love to hear from the group here. Who would like to talk about it?
Sairam,
Sairam?
this is Prasad. Sairam. The way I say practically, I think maybe we should stop comparing ourselves with others, because that's what triggers everything, like more. Because the moment you're happy with what you have, but the moment you start comparing with others, you try to you feel unhappy and try to get the other stuff that you may not need it. But if you're not happy with what you have for practical reasons, obviously there is a necessity there. That obviously working towards that is okay. But the moment you start comparing and then finding this unhappiness, so that's more unnecessary. I think start comparing others is more. I thought it's a more practical way of controlling to start with.
That's fantastic. Comparisons is like you compare with your own self, not with others, in terms of your progress and everything. Of course, we can compare to learn all the goodness, but in terms of other things, it's not a good idea. So thank you so much for sharing. And I would love to hear from more people on to how you all are practicing moderation and fulfilling your desires.
Many years ago, one of the group members in medical service asked the question to Swami. Of course, majority of us are from US. How can we practice sealing on desire? Swami came back with the answer. Everything is available in your country. How can you have sealing on desire? He posed the question and then said, the only way you're going to have sealing on desire is by having sealing on your income. So this was his very word, and just puts everything into perspective, I think. And it all goes intertwined. I think it's not just, maybe whenever we talk about desires, we talk only about the objects. It's not necessarily the object. The most important thing is the time. So if we waste time, that's half the problem. Again, I just wanted to share a story from my life, how he knows. I mean, in the very early days, when omniscience and omnipresence of Swami was only in the dictionary, I never thought that he's going to know what is happening in Maryland. So one day I was just going and express my desire that I wanted to have a cup of coffee. And my wife said, why don't we have near the mall, just get into Starbucks. On the way, there was a Rolex watch shop. He said, why don't we just go and take a look at it? I said, I don't want a watch. So why do I have to go and look at it? So you don't need to buy it, just take a look. So I went there, spent about 15 minutes, fully determined not to buy anything. And then went and had a coffee and came back. I went there, the lesson was waiting for me. He said, why did you go into the watch shop and you wanted a cup of coffee? I said, Swami, I just didn't want to buy a watch. I knew that. But why did you do that? He said, I wanted to please my wife. That's why I went there. He said, why did you waste me? Was his question. I didn't even understand his question at that time. And he said, I'm time. You wasted me. And if you wasted me, nobody would be with you. But if you followed me, she cannot be displeased. She will not go anywhere. I'll give you the promise. So, very great lesson, again, that moderation is merely dividing the time, and the time is God. So that is a great lesson, which was given to me in a very, I was very ashamed. Even in front of God, I didn't come out with the answer why I went into the voice show in the first instance. He has to prompt me and get it out of me. But again, I know you're absolutely naked in front of him. So I think that's another lesson. Sairam.
Thank you, Sairam.
Watch, do you want a cup of coffee? Whoa.
Sairam.
Sairam.
So what I do when I have a desire is I ask Swami first. And most of the time I get the same answer. He's very consistent. And he usually says, wait. And when that happens, there are several things that I benefit from. First of all, I have the opportunity to be obedient to him. Second of all, I get the chance to really think about what this desire is. It seems like a desire comes up. It's kind of like, it just has like such a rush of emotional energy. And if you don't act on it right away, if you just wait and observe, that emotional energy, you'll see if you don't act on it, it kind of subsides and becomes less. And so I know now usually the same response is going to be from Swami to wait. And there was one time I wanted to buy a camera, and it was a used camera because it was something that was available. And I had already ordered it online. And then I heard Baba say, cancel it. And so I did. I canceled it. And it went against me to do it because this is what was my desire. And then about a couple of months later, I went online and the same camera was available. Not the same exact one, but a similar one. And Baba said, proceed with it. And when I don't act on my desire, but when I wait for the inner prompting inside of myself, that usually is the higher self prompting, because we do have desires and some of them to be fulfilled are beneficial. When I do it that way, I discover that, yes, I've gotten what I desired, but more importantly, it's Swami who's giving it to me by giving me the permission. And I see it that way. And so I get the object, and there's not so much energy on the object, but there's more appreciation and thankfulness to Swami and for me being able to listen to him and being obedient. And then it just lessens in the future the intensity of desires coming up. So that's usually his response to me, to wait. And it's always a growth experience spiritually for me. Sairam.
Thank you very much. Thanks. This is fantastic, right? Like really, really trying to listen to the inner voice, inner Swami in each one of us, and to kind of act on that. Sometimes people say, this is my gut feeling, and that's Swami always talking to us. It says that if you quieten your mind and just go within, you can definitely hear him talk to you, have those conversations. And I was in October, I was in Puttaparthi, and I was very touched when I heard this beautiful talk by Dr. Sailesh Srivastava. He's one of the professors, and he's also in the bhajan group. He said, Swami is very, very close to you. The distance between Swami is like he's right inside you in your heart. When he said that with so much of conviction and so much of power in Kulwant Hall, it was so crowded. It felt like it was just amazing. And then I felt like Swami was right there with me, close to me. It's just that I need to really quieten myself and give him that my time, to feel him inside and ask him that question. Then he really comforts you. And I did have the feeling, I felt Swami very close to me at that point in time. And anytime I feel like I'm a little bit lost, I do go back to that particular moment. I try to visualize, and I try to feel that moment when I was in Kulwant Hall during this time, and he spoke with that conviction. It was just beautiful. It was like with all the children, younger, like kids from, I think, primary school all the way to the college, they were all there just listening to the professor speaking with that conviction, who's been there and continues to do all the Seva to Swami, being there in Puttaparthi. It was phenomenal. But thank you again for the reminder that we need to go inside and keep listening to that inner voice. Thank you. I would love to move to the next question on what daily mindfulness practices can I incorporate to manage desires better? Would love to hear from the rest of the group here. What daily mindful practice?
Hey, Shankar here, Sairam, Soundari, how are you?
Sairam, Shankar.
Sairam. Yeah, I think on this point, right, I think Swami has given us a wonderful tool, right? I'm just taking Namasparana as an example, right? I mean, the more time we spend either listening to bhajans or Vedam or Swami's discourses, whatever, right? I think that keeps us, I think, away from the other distractions, right? So I think it's during that time at least, we don't think about other things, right? We think of God and the bliss we enjoy from the bhajans or the Vedam or whatever, right? So I think one way to kind of manage that is to keep yourself occupied in the activities, right? That Swami has given us a long list that we can do, right? Which takes us closer to him and connects with him directly. That keeps us away from the other desires and external distractions that we would otherwise think about during that time. So just a thought on that.
Thanks, Shankar. But sometimes, you're all like, I do it myself, right? I'm telling you, like in terms of, I'm listening to the bhajans, but at the same time, I'm scrolling on Amazon and I'm like adding everything into the cart and try to order. How do I what is that mindfulness? How do I stop that?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, each one of us will have something that we get involved in, right? I mean, any of these activities, we bhajans or Vedam or discourse or anything else, right? That is spiritual, that we get really involved in, that will keep us focused on that rather than getting distracted. Maybe we'll have to choose what works for us. Maybe I'm just thinking aloud. Not everything will not be working for everyone. But I think I'm sure there'll be something that we will keep us focused and occupied with Swami's thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Did we have someone else?
Yeah.
I want to add into that, the chanting, Swami says, not listening to the songs, the bhajans will help you. Singing. So how you can control your desire, not just listening, you're listening and doing, so your mind is going all over the places. If you're singing, you're fully involved in God chanting, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam. That's Swami says. Nothing you came empty-handed, you're going to go empty-handed. Even the chanting of Vedas will not help you to merge with God, Swami says. What helps you at the end of your life is Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam. Just the name, singing, the chanting the name of the Lord. That will help you to get there. So that's what I think, not just listening, but singing.
Thanks, Sandeep. Was someone else who had said
Om Sairam,
please?
Om Sairam, can I give one comment here? You mentioned about this listening to the bhajans and doing on Amazon. That actually, if you look at from the medical point of view or the psychology point of view, how the meditation works and how these bhajans work on mind, then if you're doing with the Amazon or any other activity, that is very detrimental, because the impact of the bhajan will lost, and not only lost, any time you listen to that bhajan in future, you automatically, whether you are doing it or not, your subconscious mind will take you to Amazon activities, because that bhajan takes you to the subconscious level and a very subtle level, and now whatever you put it in, that will become a part of you. So when you are listening to bhajans, especially try that particular bhajan, when you do it, your mind will automatically will be going to the Amazon. So it's very detrimental to, that's why it says that whenever you're doing mantra, whatever you are doing it, then just do it 100% focus, and rather than doing other activities, because it's just like, when we fix our land and for the fertilizer, and we put the fertilizer in it, whatever, we put any seed in the that clean land, then it will grow, that seed will grow more speedily and more cleanly and more faster than just with the regular land, because it's already clean, it's prepared land. Similarly, when we are listening to the bhajan, our mind is so calm, it is prepared to receive whatever we send. And now we are sending the message of Amazon things, and then the mind is so all the time prepared to work on the Amazon rather than on the bhajans. This is a psychology. You can Google it. I'm a medical scientist, so I do a lot of research on these things, and this really does not help. So listening to bhajans and doing other activities when you are driving, and when you are listening to bhajans, your mind is not in the bhajans, it's in driving, and then effect of the bhajan is gone, and your mind is kind of always setting on do multiple tasks. We call it multiple tasking, always doing bhajan and doing multiple tasking. Bhajan, it just does not help. You try it yourself on that part.
Thank you so much, Sathya. Thank you so much.
So
We'll go to the last question here on how can being a part of a supportive community, help in managing desires. How do we do this? And I would love to hear from at least 2 or 3 people on this, because satsang, supportive community, satsang, our study circle, we all come together every week at the center. So how can being part of that help in managing desires?
Sairam, Soundari.
Sairam.
It's a fantastic walkthrough of the ceiling of desires, and the slides are very nice, very appealing and effective. This is a fantastic topic because I know Soundari from almost 20 plus years. This reminded me of the topic we did for a group 1 kids, your daughter, and when my daughter was in there. So when you're talking about the community support, so in our community, we have a lot of Dropbox, right? The Dropbox for clothes, etc. So this time when my daughter came back from college, I was saying, not to buy new outfit is not a thing, right? So we can't say that. So I was like, we need to go give back. So that's the one thing I'm saying. We're not going to increase the number of hangers in our closets, but before we buy next one, go and put it in the Dropbox where our community already supports that. That was one of the things I was trying to practice for myself and my daughter. I think that was one thing I wanted to share. And coming to the community itself, it's not like this community just at the workforce. I can say it's also a group of community where we work. So there are a lot of Asian women in my workforce where they always feel the roadmap is very different for us and it's not being fair. But it constantly reminds me of you. And I think she always says duty is worship. So focus on what it is and do your best and leave the rest to the God. That is something I keep talking to my colleagues. Sairam.
Thank you so much, Ashwini. Thanks for bringing that. You are taking Swami's message and being that ambassador and trying to incorporate it into your real, the real life, the corporate life, and trying to kind of pass on Swami's message in the best possible manner. Thank you so much.
Sairam, Soundari, I was going to add something too. That sure. I think one of the places where the supportive community helps is even in our own house, with our spouse or partner or kids, it can make a difference. But part of it requires a certain amount of openness and vulnerability to say, this is something I'd like to work on. That's the first step. And then making it kind of like a team effort where other people can help. I'll give an example for me, like snacking. in the house is a thing, or even just being regular about exercising and all too. But that's the type of thing where if I mention it to Supriya, to my wife, and say this is something that I want to work on, that way she's also aware of that too. And I'll say, look, it's not like you have to eliminate, the snacks yourself or what things you bring into the house or that kind of thing. But then that way it helps keep each other on task. Or like if one person's going for a walk, the other person might say, hey, I'll go too. Or sometimes people can schedule things in a way that makes it more supportive to help someone instead of being like to facilitate that instead of, in a way that's more helpful and all too. But I think it helps if you bring other people into that journey, but then we have to be willing to share what we're working on too. So, but I think that it definitely makes a difference to have other people as part of that as well.
Thank you so much, Ketan. That's fantastic, right? To have team. It's a teamwork, and constantly pulling each other and being supportive and understanding one another is such an important aspect of it. And trying to be that I'll be there for you kind of a person. Like buddy system always works. We'll have one more person share, and then I will wrap up. Anyone else wants to talk about supportive community managing desires?
Sairam, Soundari. I don't know if
Sairam,
does anybody else want to speak? Okay, I'll just going to make a couple of comments there, if that's okay.
Yes.
So, when we talk about desires, I mean, this is something that is a topic that Swami has said for a long time. Yeah, you mentioned that. It's not like he's asking us not to have desires, and he's asking us to have a ceiling on desires. And if you go back to early days of Swami, his interview room was called Korikala Gadi, which is, in translation, it means wish fulfilling room. So his room was actually fulfilling desires for the devotees. So in a sense, Swami actually wants us to learn how to desire, which is basically to ask him, and to get material desires also through him initially, so that we can ask him what he has come to give. That's what Swami always focused on. So with that, our mind's nature is to desire, and you can potentially subdue it somewhat, but it's going to come up somewhere else. And I think one thing Swami talks about is it's like when children are ready to start transitioning in their early childhood to solid foods. When you first give them some food, Swami actually talks about this. If you give them little food, they usually spit it out, but then they get used to it. You make them get used to it. I think this supportive community really comes in that perspective, where each of us help each other gain taste for God. So when you go into a Sai center, you inspire each other, and which is exactly what Swami's devotees do when you're in front of Swami. You're really not thinking about yourself. In fact, when you desire for others, it becomes prayer. So the desire itself is fine but you should learn how to desire properly, which is with the intensity where it can be granted. When it can be granted, and you realize that God is there to protect you all the time, there is nothing for you to desire. Then you can desire for the rest of the world. So that's how I was thinking of these two aspects, which is the desire and how do you manage it, and how does a community actually help? Because personally, for me, just the fact that we used to see friends of mine who were so immersed in God, it was just a joy to be around them, and they resonate with their devotion, and that's what the satsangs do too. So those are a couple of thoughts I wanted to share. Thank you. Soundari, you're muted.
Soundari. Last week, I want to wrap up with one last comment. Like one of our Sai Center members had brought it up at our center. Like we are doing the study of Jnanavahini, which is like a very tough concept. You know, it's like all one sentence, but that one sentence is filled with essence. It's like it can take up to chapters of more in-depth analysis. And that thing was to be signing up each of us to sign up for a witness protection program, that we are the witness, being a witness to everything rather than getting involved, getting immersed, rather than being a witness. And how do we witness? Like for everything, like how we act, how we speak, how we think, being a witness at every stage, really helps us to conduct our lives much, much better. When we become a witness, then you're like constantly watching yourself. How do we do this? And I think that can be applied even for this whole desires, program. So like sealing on desires, if I'm a witness, I'm like, do I really need it? I'm constantly being a witness and checking on what I'm doing. So we said we are all signing up for this witness protection program, like protection is from Swami in the program. So, and I hope we all gathered some kind of life hacks, take tips from one another here that we can take back and incorporate in our lives, and definitely make our lives Swami's message, because that's all Swami wanted from us, nothing else. And thank you so much to every one of you for spending this entire hour with me here and giving me an opportunity to be amongst you. And thank you, Swami, because I know that you've been checking on me, because I've done some kind of lot of online purchases. That's why he made me do this topic, so that he's showing to me that he's watching me. He's always there with me. And thank you.